Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me back with another video. All right, so first of all, I want to send condolences and prayers out to everybody who was affected by what took place in Houston at the Astroworld event. Travis Scott and Drake and everybody in Houston. It was a big, huge concert, and like a lot of times, how it is when you bunch of youngsters are going to a concert and it isn't um, secure at the gate. Kids were rushing in like crazy, trampling each other, and reportedly, um, up to 9 people were killed in the trampling. Uh, some of the stories that are out there are kind of terrifying. I heard a recount of a kid who was saying basically it felt demonic to be in there. He was seeing people trampled. It looked like you know Travis Scott and his perception wasn't adhering to the crowd trying to get his attention to stop performing, and it just felt like a demonic situation to him. It felt evil. You know, here's my thing. There's two sides to this conversation I'd like to talk about. And one side of it is making sure that um, we don't on this channel um, speak as if Travis Scott and his the creators of this particular venue were where this type of situation resonated or began. This is not the first time we've seen mosh pit deaths. This is not the first time we've seen uh, artists, igniting crowds or being perceived to igniting crowds to act completely wild and out of control. And this isn't the first time we've seen a venue book um, book a show that they're not effectively able to secure. So that's where I go with this. We could get on Travis Scott for igniting the crowd, and yes, there are situations where artists can do so and it can cause a lot of harm. He's not the first one to do this, and that's okay. We still have to hold him accountable as we do. But I think it's going to be a situation where there's going to be a whole lot of people, particularly in this country, who are going to try to make him the face for mosh pit deaths and try to make it seem like this is the culture that started this type of behavior. And we know that's not hip hop. Travis Scott is considered rock, bass, hip hop, more so hip hop because he's black, as usual in this country. That's just kind of how it goes. When you're from a certain neighborhood and you make a certain type of music, they throw you in that genre whether you like it or not. Same goes with African music. If you're from Africa, even though you're making all kinds of different music, if you happen to be from their country, uh, you just toss into an African pop rather than toss into the genre you deserve to be in on certain music sites. But that's another conversation. Obviously, the point is, it's just a lot of imbalance as it pertains to when African Americans are caught doing something and them finding themselves being the poster child for that act. When we know that that act was just mimicked by that African American, mimicking someone who probably wasn't them at all, wasn't black at all. So it gets to a point where it gets frustrating for me as somebody who loves music, loves art, loves my people, loves our country, etc. To just see, um, first and foremost, situations like this occur where children are not safe. That's something that I think about a lot, just in general, when children are just not safe. Uh, Asking children to keep it together and be civil and understand the importance of structure and understand the importance of safety and all that other stuff that kids don't give too much of care about unless they have of a certain mindset or a certain household. When you bring all these youngsters together at the ages of 10 to 20, um, and you let drugs and alcohol be a part of the situation, which a lot of times it is, you're going to have situations like this where they're just going to be reckless, and they're going to be not caring nothing about each other's safety, and it's not it's upon the grown-ups throwing the venue who's going to be making the millions of dollars off of the venue to make sure that they secure it well enough to prepare for any of this, and they didn't do that. Now I don't know uh, who's going to take the fall for this, but it sounds like they're trying to set it up so that Travis ends up being the one that takes the blame for this. And I don't know who's through what. For all I know, it's his money throwing everything. Who knows? But most of the time, in situations like this, it's a lot of people, a lot of bigger corporations behind the artist that ultimately are responsible for making sure this thing goes. So while he might have with his music and his style of performing ignited the crowd, and that might have been something that we want to take a look at him for. We also got to look at the people who booked him, who know what it is that he do, who know what it is to throw a venue like this, to throw something like this, and what type of security is necessary, what type of securing is necessary to make this thing go, and they fail to do it. It's on them, more so than it is the artist, because you simply booked an artist that does this. And granted, this is Houston, his hometown. Astroworld was his album, so this is the third annual Astroworld, you know, festival. So this is a thing. This is something that they made a lot of money off of for the last 3 years. It's something that's become a staple in their town. So I understand the importance of them wanting to throw it and make as much money off of it as possible, especially coming off a pandemic. But because we're coming off a pandemic, you can't get rusty about how you secure these venues. You can't get rusty about how you prepare for securing these venues. You can't just think it's just going to be civil just because you hired a couple security guards and got a couple gates. I mean, I hate to harken back to something that has nothing to do with this, but I have to, because it gave us a good understanding of what it is when you don't have that in place. Afghanistan, at the airport situation, when you don't have it in place, regardless if you're able to get it or not, that's not the argument. But when you don't have that security in place, catastrophic things can happen when it's just a bunch of people with their feet running towards something. And, you know, how you stop a mob, it's a speeding stampede. Well, the best way to do so, honestly, is to not book somebody who's going to make sure that that stampede is in place. And that's exactly the type of artist Travis Scott is. You know what I'm saying? And when you get these type of artists, these mosh pit artists, these high octane, you know, go crazy and climb all over everything, throw stuff off, you know, to jump into the crowd type artists. When you have these type of high energy artists that thrive off of chaotic energy, when you book them, you have to be ready for what comes with that. And I guess that's the lesson that was finally learned here. But I've seen this before, so it should have been learned many times before. This was horrific, you know, and artists, they're people who are responsible for helping them have tone. You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to take cues. You know, if there's a situation in the crowd where literally 9 people or lives are in danger, people on the stage telling you, hey, pay attention. Hey, some stuff is going. Could you kind of adhere to what's going on around you? You can't be too loaded, and I'm gonna say it just like that. You can't be too loaded that you can't take those cues while you're on stage. You can't be too shot up into the adrenaline, in terms of natural adrenaline, to not be able to understand that you're leading the crowd. If you get on that thing and say, yo, it's dangerous in here, people gonna start running. If you sit up here and say, yo, everybody put your hand up in the air, they're gonna put their hand in the air. If you say, yo, everybody say Travis Scott, everybody go scream your name. Like, you have control over the crowd to some degree, which means when you tell them to mosh out and 9 people die, people gonna be blaming you, and they're gonna have every reason to do so. So that's what happens. You know, you take what you the energy you put out, you get back. And that is not just as it pertains to karma and treating people and all that stuff. That is everything. That includes when I go outside and say I'm a mosh pit type of artist, and everybody need to be moshing around me, and that's the environment I'm on, and that's how I make my millions. When I go out and I tell people to mosh, this is the environment I'm creating. This is what we've been talking about on different topics on this channel. The environment's created by people who may find themselves involved in accidents because of those environments, things that happen because of the environments they create. Yeah, 2 subjects may have did some things in that environment, but they wouldn't have did it in another environment. It was your environment that made it so that was possible. And I have to say the same thing to Travis Scott and the people who booked this venue, people who imagine this venue as the way that it is. All y'all responsible for those kids' death. All of y'all. So. And then you get back to, you know, we can zoom out, even though we don't love to do this in regards to different other subjects. We're going to do it here because it's necessary to do it in every situation, regardless if you like it or not. Anybody who imagined that mentality, old rockers who used to tell people to mosh, dudes in the 90s and 80s who used to bust people's heads open, now they running around 40 years old, sitting down chilling. you know, commenting on different topics in regards to stuff like this, saying how bad it is that people are doing this and how irresponsible these kids are and how irresponsible Travis is. You guys and your generations were the ones who was elbowing each other in the head listening to all different types of rock groups in the 90s. And that's why Travis Scott has derived that nonsense from y'all. Yes, Travis Scott is a black dude in hip hop. He didn't start this mosh pit nonsense. He didn't have people bopping each other over the head, kicking people in the throat and all that nonsense. That's y'all. Let's just be real. That's not hip hop. You know what I mean? We didn't start that. We're just continuing it because we derive certain things from your culture, just like other cultures take from everyone else. So it's just, it just is what it is, man. You know what I mean? Am I holding Travis responsible for his aspects in this? Yeah, sure. He needs to be held responsible for allowing that situation to get as bad as it did without actually having any sense of what was going on around him. I hold him accountable for that because if it's not his intuition that needs to be in place, it's the people he pays intuition who needs to be sharp. It's the people who pay him whose intuition needs to be sharp, and all of them need to be responsible for what happened to those people. You know, period. Including the city of Houston that okayed that venue and that type of securing. Whoever rules and regulations aren't in place to be stricter for these venues to protect these people, they are also at fault. So that's what this video is about, just making sure that the proper blame is assessed here instead of just giving it to one guy or sitting up here saying, oh, these hip hop kids, they don't know how to act when they go. No, that was punk rockers taught us how to do that. We just took from y'all. So let's just be very, very honest when we start assessing who and what deserves what. Anyway, my condolences out to everybody who's lost their lives. That's always my concern. It's always my intention is to try to help prevent in some small way whatever needs to be prevented. In this case, it's reckless securing. You know, I'm a security guard, you know, even though I don't do that job right now. Y'all know that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. There's certain ways you just have to make sure you're prepared for certain things, you know. Coming out of the security job that I just left, Santa Monica Place, we would have protocol where we would practice certain things of crowd control and riot control and stuff like that. We had things that we did pretty regularly to kind of prepare us for all of the different things that would have to be done in a very seriously quick time, you know. And it's like, if you don't have your protocols in place for certain things that just should be expected, like trampling and people acting crazy and wild different various things, then you also open up the risk for being sued when certain things happen. It's just, you would expect a venue that big who are expecting that many people and just kind of have it together in that way. So those lawsuits are going to be coming down, rightfully so. I don't know who's going to go to jail, but I'd imagine somebody's going to be facing some legal issues for real. And, you know, rightfully so, because people lost their lives and nobody's in a position to effectively place blame to various people who are running. Sorry. I mean, it was actually their feet that ultimately did the killing, but it was the environment created by those who were in place to profit from it that ultimately led to those deaths. My name is BDF44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.